John West, Paranormal Park Ranger in The Phantom Hitchhiker of Prairie Route 12. HQ Incident File Number 11, Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Aggressive apparition annoying attendees to near insanity. Assigned ranger has abandoned post citing inability to take it for one more second. Paralentity, Clovis Fisher, hitchhiking ghost. Assistant appeasement requested until new ranger can be appointed. Have you ever been forced to spend time with someone so annoying that you thought you were going to lose your mind? Howdy, folks. John West, Paranormal Park Ranger here, heading through North Dakota on I-94 towards Theodore Roosevelt National Park. I haven't been here for years as the place isn't very paranormally active, but recently one of its few resident ghosts has been acting up. They call him the Phantom Hitchhiker of Prairie Route 12, and while he's well known for running his mouth, it seems like lately his story has taken on a life of its own. Driving into Teddy Roos feels like slipping into a hidden world. One moment you're surrounded by open grassland and big sky, and the next the land suddenly fractures into painted badlands of rust red, gold, and gray. The road winds through layered hills and eroded buttes, revealing distant horizons, grazing bison, and the quiet, rugged beauty that once shaped the bull moose himself. I don't have a partner for this assignment. They ran away. I passed their abandoned vehicle on the side of the road. That's actually why I'm here. The Phantom Hitchhiker is an appeasement case, a ghost that just needs to be paid attention to. No danger. But they are very, very needy and extremely annoying. So every few years, the ranger assigned to the appeasement quits. Until we can find another eager recruit straight out of training that loves Dakota, I'll have to listen to the ghost's tale. I have the radio off and there's no one else on the road when Clovis Fisher himself appears in my passenger seat, facing forward like he's been there the whole ride. Gaunt and dust-streaked, he wears a weather-beaten hat pulled low over hollow eyes, and his old frontier coat hangs loose on his skeletal frame. And that's when I told him. I said, "Teddy, that's the finest horse I ever seen," he tells me. "Clovis," I try to interrupt, but he doesn't stop. "Now, Teddy Roosevelt," he says, "most people don't know this, but he drank 13 cups of coffee a day. You could smell his breath before he entered the room. He wanted to call the horse coffee, but I said, 'Mr. Roosevelt, that's no name for a horse.'" I can't lie. He's a good storyteller. I settle back in my seat and prepare for a good, long listening. Now, the horse was the smallest ever born, they say, and he grew into the largest in the Dakotas at the time. Roosevelt and I found him as a colt, trying to stand on two legs like a man. The horse already knew its own name, Ricardo. Now, Roosevelt was no fan of South America, and so he tried to rename it Coffee, but the colt would have none of it. Now, the strangest first thing of many strange things, was that little Ricardo would refuse water unless it was poured into a hat, but we entertained him, obviously, because he was exceptional. We started to notice that the colt was growing fast, lightning fast, but only when no one was looking at it. And so we'd leave it be, and every day it kept a-growing. But not just physically, emotionally, too. Started opening gates and sweeping up after itself. Real polite. Well, unless it had a problem with what you were saying. Why, he'd even interrupt the future president with his snorting. Anyhow, all sorts of folks wanted to see this crazy critter, and soon he developed a crowd. And he loved it. Loved it so much that he stopped doing anything if people weren't looking on. But looking on they were. Newspapers back east even started talking about the horse that could nod convincingly during conversation. So, of course, money came calling. Was a banker tried to buy Ricardo, but he couldn't keep up with the horse's negotiations. Ricardo knew he was a star and wanted to be remunerated accordingly, and so he bought a ticket and headed east, seeking an even bigger audience and a better paycheck. Ricardo was soon the darling of the nation, and not just our nation, but others too. European heads of state insisted he had the most excellent breeding they had ever seen, and no one gives a crap about that like Europeans do. Anyhow, an Argentine princess falls in love with old Ricardo, and that's when he finds his life's true passion, the tango. He was famous, ultra famous before the tango, but when he began to perform with his wife Parmenita, the whole world stopped to watch. Ricardo reached heights of fames never before seen and not seen again until Elvis. Elvis the horse, that is, which history doesn't remember because of the rock and roll singer. Anyways, Ricardo became the 13th Viscount of Baraculfa and moved into politics. They say you shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, but I'd add that you shouldn't try to argue law with a dancing one either. The horse was a politician? I ask, mainly because I haven't talked in so long. Well, yes, but... Oh, you made me lose my place, Clovis moaned. Well, let's start back at the beginning. Oh, God. I think I see the issue here. Why the other Rangers are always quitting. It's got to be the classic, he has to finish his story. I wonder how long could it go on? I'm kind of curious to find out. But my gas is low, so I stop to refill. And when I climb back in my wagon, like I had feared, Clovis is gone. I spend a night in a squat, flickering roadside motel, knowing I'll find the old coot at the beginning of his story the next morning. Bright as rain, about 12 minutes after I'm back on the road the next day, the phantom hitchhiker reappears. Howdy, he says, almost like he recognizes me from the night before. And then he launches right back into his story. Smallest ever born. Tried to rename it Coffee. Sweeping up after itself, real polite. Was a banker tried to buy Ricardo. Darling of the nation. And that's when he finds his life's true passion. Elvis the horse, that is. 13th Viscount of Baraculfa. The hairs on my neck are bristling, but I force myself to think. Just don't interrupt. Let him keep going. I grip the wheels and check my gas. We could be doing this until Wisconsin. And you know what? That's exactly what we do. For the next 6 hours, Clovis goes on and on and on. I simply cannot believe it. I move from mild annoyance to full-on anger and then to wonder, honestly, that any story could last so long. Then back to anger, where I stay for most of the rest of the tale. I won't bore you with all the details, but he goes on about Ricardo actually serving a forgotten term as U.S. president, as well as holding positions as a duke and emperor of Japan. I guess pictures of the horse weren't even of a horse at all. Artists couldn't capture his magnificence. People began clapping compulsively whenever he was near, and this led to record hand wounds. The tango became renamed the Ricardo. Ricardo actually wrote, I want to hold your hand. It's just endless, absurd, infuriating, fascinating. But I run out of gas. I stop to refill, and, of course, Clovis is gone when I get back from the bathroom. It's gonna be 7 hours back to Prairie Route 12 on I-94. Clovis, you son of a bitch. Boring is almost worse than annoying. Makes you want annoying back like a toxic ex. As I am extremely bored on the drive back, I talk to my HQAI to try and learn more about the ghost. Like I said before, Clovis was well known. Harmless, mostly, just needing to be heard. At least that's how an appeasement case usually works. It's the same story or sobbing or something or other you just have to tolerate until oftentimes the ghost is satisfied. But as I'm listening to the early reports about Clovis, I noticed something strange. His story has changed. At first, the legend that all witnesses reported hearing from the apparition was simple, about he and Theodore Roosevelt found a young colt and took it in, and that colt grew into a prize horse. This version of the story lasted for decades, but then, a few years ago, it started changing. But the type of ghost you appease, a ghost who's stuck in a cycle, doesn't ever change, you see. The fact that Clovis has become inconsistent makes me think this might not be an appeasement case at all. Hey, hi, I ask my database. What can you tell me about story curses? It spits out a bunch of unrelated nonsense until I scold it into dialing in on what I want. Stupid AI. But eventually I locate a compendium of story curses. I learn about fibcasts, that's when gossip changes reality, and vainglories, tales that make men into something greater than their reality. But it's a certain case from the Renaissance era that catches my ear. In it, a monk told the story of his meeting with the Pope so many times that it literally came to life and started feeding on the monk. The story literally took on a life of its own. Well, it's obvious. The nature of my case has changed. This isn't appeasement, this is emancipation. I've got to free poor Clovis from the story that got away from him. My strategy? Well, I had a really, really annoying roommate in the army. This guy could have held back Hitler's army, he was so long-winded. Living with him was hell, but it taught me patience. Patience like a father of 8. I fit my Ranger wagon with a fusion transcoder so that I can't run out of gas, load up on NoDoz, and get ready to ignore the parasite feeding on Ghost Clovis like he's a guy handing out flyers at the mall. As soon as Clovis takes his place on my passenger seat, I go tunnel vision. I shut him out. It's 7 hours before we reach the part of the story I haven't heard yet. Some of it breaks through my resolve. Damn it! The story is insanely intriguing. Time travel. Punched at Tyrannosaur. Adult film industry. But I hold strong, staring at the bumper ahead of me with all my might as I chew NoDoz like it's Pez and sweat bullets. And the story really doesn't like it. Clovis starts getting more animated and raising his voice, but I hold tight. I start making up my own story. One day, I went downtown to buy some pork. The ghost starts bouncing up and down and swinging his arms. I hold tight. But the pork was gone, so I had to get chicken. The chicken was good. I use mustard. Mustard is yellow. Clovis climbs up on the wagon bench and starts screeching his story into my ear. Roosevelt transferred his consciousness to Ricardo in a voodoo ritual. But I hold tight. Desperate, his story now starts to go completely off the rails. This is where I expose the parasite. In vain, Ricardo became the first emissary to Venus. He's shouting up my neck. Now I finally let him know I'm listening. I shoot him a side-eye that says, "Gotcha!" In a snap, it's over. Clovis stutters. He was the first to tango in orbit, he says, furrowing his brow. No, he says quietly. That's not it. Go on, I say, goading the story. Well, let me start at the beginning, Clovis says, but something's changed. See, Theodore, well, he says, looking at me sadly. Oh, never mind. You've heard that one before anyways. He then whimpers a bit before a great realization dawns on old Clovis. He looks at me and his face brightens into a grateful grin as he fades away. Bully. And no one ever heard Clovis Fisher's story ever again. Well, until now. Anyways, until next time, keep your story straight, and John West, Paranormal Park Ranger, has got you covered.